Phoenix heat is just brutal. It's not even like weather, it's more like a physical weight. By 4 in the afternoon, the stucco on our house looks like it's vibrating, and the air coming off the asphalt in our cul-de-sac is just oppressive. I spend most of my day in an office with the AC cranked, moving fabric swatches and mood boards around for clients who want their living rooms to look like a luxury hotel. But the second I walk through my own front door, that desert heat just seems to seep through the walls. I must have spent like 15 minutes just staring at this smudge on the baseboard in the entryway. I don't even know why. I guess I was just zoning out. It was this tiny gray streak, probably from the vacuum, or maybe Maya's sneakers, and for some reason, it felt like a failure. That's the thing about being an interior designer. You spend your whole life making other people's homes feel serene or modern, while your own house just feels like an expensive museum where you're not allowed to actually touch anything. I remember thinking that if the HOA ever did a surprise inspection, they'd probably give me a gold star for my neutral palette and my pillows. Mark got home around 6. He didn't really say hello. He just walked in, dumped his briefcase on the granite island, and started complaining about the I-10. He was talking, but not really to me. I was standing right there holding a laundry basket, and he just looked past me to see if the iced tea was poured. I-10 was a parking lot, he said, finally looking at me. Some moron probably stalled in the middle lane. Anyway, did you call the plumber about the guest bath? I did, I said. He's coming Thursday morning. Great. He took a sip of his tea and went back to his phone. I stood there for a second, the laundry basket heavy against my hip. I don't know. I just felt invisible, like I was just the person who makes sure the kids are fed and the house doesn't fall apart, but I'm not actually part of the conversation anymore. I wasn't even sad exactly, sadness takes too much energy. I was just done. Like that kind of exhaustion that settles into your bones. After 10 years of making sure everyone else is taken care of before you even remember you have needs. I'd spent years smoothing out the wrinkles in our marriage and managing the house like it was a business, and in return, I basically became a utility. I think it was a Tuesday or maybe Wednesday, because Maya had swim practice, and the house was quiet. When I noticed things shifting, it wasn't anything huge. No lipstick on a collar or weird phone calls, just a subtle withdrawal. He was there, but he wasn't there. He started staying later at the office, saying the quarterly reports were a disaster. He started wearing this new cologne, something with sandalwood that I definitely didn't buy for him. I tried asking him about it once, but he just laughed. He told me I was overthinking things, that I had too much free time on my hands. He said it in that tone he uses when he's explaining something simple to a child. I didn't even argue. I just went back to the kitchen and started the salad. A few days later, I was looking for our 401k statements in the mahogany desk in his study. The drawer was a total mess, which is weird because Mark is usually a freak about his filing. I spent 10 minutes digging through old receipts and random cables. And don't even get me started on the batteries. Like, who keeps old AA batteries from 2015? I've told him a million times to just use the recycling bin in the garage, but no. I found myself getting actually angry at the batteries. Like, why can't a grown man walk 5 steps to the garage? I spent a good 3 minutes just staring at a leaking a battery, feeling this surge of irrational hatred for it. My Wi-Fi had been acting up all morning too, so I was already on edge. Anyway, I pushed the batteries and the white cords aside, and that's when I was it. It was a small, black leather box, tucked way in the back of the bottom drawer behind some old tax returns. It wasn't a jewelry box, it was too plain for that. It had a silver latch and a combination lock. I sat on the floor of the study, the AC was blowing cold against my ankles. I tried every password I could think of, our anniversary, the kids' birthdays, nothing. I almost gave up and just threw the thing away, because I was getting a panic attack just looking at it. I just sat there with the box in my lap for a long time. I could hear the neighbor's leaf blower and the TV in the living room where Mark was watching a game. He was right there, just a few walls away, but it felt like we were in totally different worlds. I remembered a time, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, when we actually talked. We'd spend hours on the patio drinking wine and talking about where we wanted to be in 20 years. Back then, I felt like a partner. Now I was just the person who managed the calendar and made sure the linens were pressed. I'd spent all this time building a perfect life, and I guess I just ended up on the outside of it. I tried one more combination. The date of the house closing, the day we moved into this place. The latch popped open. It sounded way too loud in the quiet room. I didn't open it right away. I just looked at the lid, my fingers shaking a little. I actually wanted to close it and push it back behind the dead batteries. I thought if I didn't know I could just keep pretending the silence between us was just stress or age. I could just keep being the reliable wife, but I was just too tired to pretend. All the times he'd ignored me or brushed me off, it just felt like the only thing keeping me upright was this quiet rage. I didn't care about the peace and quiet anymore. I just wanted to know even if it was ugly. I lifted the lid, it wasn't money or letters. It was a burner phone and a small, handwritten notebook. I picked up the phone first. It was cheap, plastic, and felt tacky. I pressed the power button and the screen flickered on. There was only one contact saved, no name, just a single letter, L. I opened the notebook. The handwriting wasn't, marks it, was this flowing feminine script. The first page was dated 3 years ago. I leaned back against the desk, the cold floor pressing into my skin, and I started reading. I just read page after page while the sun finally went down and the room turned gray. I just sat there in the dark. I spent a while in the study, maybe 40 minutes. I was just staring at this book. The handwriting looked like a woman's. It wasn't a diary or anything, more like a log. Dates, places, things Mark had said. It was all right there, and I'd been completely oblivious. Then I heard the garage door open. I didn't move. I stayed in the dark with the box on my lap, listening to the AC hum. Mark walked in and didn't see me at first. He was staring at his phone, probably texting. He looked normal, button down, sleeves rolled up. He smelled like that sandalwood cologne he always wears, but for some reason, it made me nauseous. "Did you finish the laundry?" he asked. He didn't even look up. "Whose?" I asked. My voice sounded weird. He stopped walking. It got really quiet. He slowly put his phone down and looked at me. Then he saw the black box. He didn't even look shocked. He sighed like I was annoying him. "Scarlett, what are you doing? Why are you in my stuff?" "Your stuff?" I stood up and the book fell off my lap and hit the floor. "You have a burner phone, Mark, and this. I don't even know what this is. Who is this person?" He didn't actually answer. He stepped closer and gave me this look, like he felt sorry for me. "Are you seriously doing this again? God, you're spiraling. This is why we can't have a normal conversation. You've been in the house too much and you're just making things up because you're bored." It happened so fast. 1 second, Hez my husband, then Hez talking to me like I'm crazy. He didn't even deny the phone or the book, he just made it about my head. "I'm not spiraling," I said, my hands were shaking. "There's a phone in here, a name, dates, it's for work," he said. He sounded so calm. "It's a sensitive project for a client, Logan R. Clark. He's a huge client, he's loaded, and he wants to stay anonymous. The writing? That's his assistant. I keep the notes separate for security. I told you the quarterly report was a disaster. Right, this is part of that." I stared at him. Logan R. Clark. It sounded like a real corporate name. But the book wasn't about money. It had stuff in it like Tuesday, Hotel Indigo. She wants to know when I'm leaving her. "Since when does a client's assistant write about who's leaving who?" I asked. Mark stepped closer and used that low voicey one he uses to get me to stop talking. "You're just looking for a fight. You're exhausted. I think you should take a break. Maybe go to your mother's for a few days, just to clear your head." For a second, I actually wondered if I was overreacting. Maybe I was just tired. The heat in Phoenix this time of year is brutal, and my brain felt fried. "And not going to my mother's," I said. "I felt cold," fine, he said, shrugging. "But don't complain when you realize you ruined the night playing detective. I'm going to shower." He walked out. He didn't even try to take the box back. That was the weirdest part. He was so sure he could talk me out of it that he didn't even bother hiding the evidence. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay there listening to him breathe next to me. I kept thinking about all the times I'd apologized for things I didn't do, just so we wouldn't fight. I thought about the house, the beige linens, the lawn, the kids' schedules. I tried so hard to make everything perfect. Anyway, I think it was a Friday, maybe Saturday. I remember the garbage trucks were being really loud, and I decided to start my own project. If he wanted to be anonymous, I could do that too. I've run this house for 10 years, I know where everything is. I have the passwords for the bills and the HOA stuff. I just didn't have the passwords for his secret life. I waited until he took Maya to her swim meet on Saturday morning. Once the house was empty, I went straight to his study. I didn't look at the desk. This time I went for the filing cabinet in the corner. It was locked, but he's predictable. He always puts keys in the same 3 spots: the nightstand, his gym bag, or that ceramic bowl by the front door. I found it in the bowl, under some change and a Target receipt. He'd bought some expensive skincare, $100 for one serum. I don't use that stuff. I use the cheap drugstore brands because I don't have time for a 10-step routine. I spent a few minutes staring at that paper, getting really annoyed. Who spends $100 on a serum when it's this humid? It felt wasteful. But then I realized it was actually a clue, so I unlocked the cabinet. There were folders for the kids' college funds and taxes, and then an envelope that said miscellaneous. Inside were bank statements for an account I'd never seen. A savings account at a bank 3 towns over. I'm sitting on the floor, which, by the way, is disgusting because Mark never vacuum sand. I start scrolling through these statements. There were regular withdrawals, hundreds of dollars at hotels and restaurants in Scottsdale and Tempe, places we never go. And then I saw the name on a joint ownership form for a condo in Scottsdale. I didn't even feel my heart race. I just felt numb. He wasn't talking about a client. Logan wasn't a client. Logan was either the name he was using for this other life, or Logan was the other person. Either way, the stuff he told me the night before didn't matter. He wasn't just cheating, he was stealing. He was taking from our joint accounts money for Maya's college and our retirement to pay for a place for someone else. I spent the next 4 hours taking photos of everything. Every statement, every scrap of paper. I put them all into a hidden folder in my cloud storage. I felt weirdly calm. I know I should probably call a lawyer, but I'm honestly just numb. I looked around the room, the desk, the leather chairs, the neutral walls. It all looked so nice. Mark spent years making sure everything looked serene on the surface, and I helped him do it. I remember when Maya was a toddler, we used to joke about not becoming that couple the ones who look perfect in photos but hate each other. I actually believed him. I spent 10 years trying to fit into his world. I walked to the window. The sun was hitting the stucco outside, and I could see the neighbors' sprinklers going off. I wasn't sad. I was just clear. He thought I was unstable. He thought I was just a bored housewife. He could push around. He forgot I'm a designer. I know how to tear things down and start over. I heard the garage door open. He was back. I quickly locked the cabinet, put the key back in the bowl, and fixed the rug. I went into the kitchen and started making a salad. "Hey," he said, kissing my cheek. He smelled like chlorine and sandalwood. "How was your day?" "Productive," I said. I didn't look at him. I finally organized those files in the study. He laughed. "See? I told you that you needed to focus your energy on something useful. I'm glad you're feeling better, Scarlett." I gave him a small smile. "I feel great." Marked, I stood there for a minute, wondering if I could get the condo in the settlement, or if I should just drain the account first. Throwaway account because my husband follows my main. I don't even know where to start. If you've ever lived in Phoenix, you know how gross the heat is. It gets into everything. I spent last Tuesday walking around my house, looking at all this stuff I've spent years picking out, the paint colors, the curtains. I don't know, it felt stupid. Like I'd spent a decade decorating a place I don't even want to live in anymore. I had the address for a condo in Scottsdale saved in a note on my phone, hidden in a grocery list. I didn't actually go there, Yeti wasn't ready for that, so I did what anyone does and went down a rabbit hole online. Lily C. Hernandez. I found her name on a utility bill that was tucked into some random folder. Mark is usually a freak about his paperwork, but I guess he got sloppy, or maybe he figured I was too bored as a housewife to notice a piece of mail. Finding her was way too easy. Public Instagram, LinkedIn, all that. She's 26, a brand stylist or something. When I first saw her photo, I didn't feel like I was in a movie. I wasn't even that jealous at first, mostly just curious. She had that look, you know? Sun-kissed, blonde highlights, the kind of skin you have when you haven't spent 10 years raising 2 kids and dealing with a marriage that feels like a second job. But then I kept scrolling and it really started to get to me. There were photos of brunch at these places I've been telling Mark about for years, and he always called them too touristy. Then there was a trip to Sedonard Rocks, champagne on a balcony. The caption said something about magic weekends. She didn't tag him, but I could see his watch in one of the pictures, that Patek Philippe. I'm the one who spent 3 weeks on forums researching the movement for that watch. He wore it to Maya's graduation, and he wore it to the condo. I think it was a Sunday or maybe Saturday. I remember some kids had a lemonade stand down the street. Anyway, I spent like 4 hours staring at her life. This wasn't just a fling. He'd built a whole separate life. Lily didn't have to deal with the Hoa complaining about the hedges or the kids' orthodontist appointments. She got the fun version of Mark. The Mark I've lived with for the last 5 years basically just complains about traffic on the I-10 and asks if the iced tea is poured. I was sitting in the kitchen in the dark, looking at my phone, when the light over the sink started flickering. It was one of those smart bulbs that's supposed to be modern, but the app kept crashing and it started strobing. I spent 10 minutes tapping my screen, getting more and more pissed off. Eventually, I unscrewed the damn thing with my bare hands and left it. Once the light was gone, I went back to the notes I'd found. I had them hidden in the craft room in a bin of old fabric swatches. It wasn't just dates. It was stuff they'd actually talked about. Lily wrote about how Mark said his home life was stagnant. He called our marriage a comfortable arrangement and said he felt like he was suffocating. He told her I was stable, but he said it in a way that made me sound like a piece of furniture. He liked that the house was clean and the kids were handled, but he wanted the excitement he had with her. It was weird reading that. Basically, I did the work so he had plenty of free time to go start a second family. I thought about the early years. Like when we went to Mexico for our anniversary, third or fourth I can't remember, and he spent the whole trip telling me how lucky he was. I actually believed him. I thought if I smoothed over the arguments and dealt with his moods would be okay, but it was all a lie. I started looking at the bank statements again. There was this recurring payment to a jewelry store in Old Town. The numbers were huge, 4,000, 6,000. I looked in my own jewelry box, and the last thing he bought me were some diamond studs for our 10th anniversary, and he made a big deal about how expensive they were. Then I went back to Lily's Instagram. In a photo from a few months ago, she's wearing this tennis bracelet. I zoomed in on it and recognized the clasp. It was Art Deco. I remembered that bracelet. I'd seen it in a magazine 2 years ago and mentioned it once during dinner. I didn't even ask for it, I just said it was pretty. Mark had just nodded and told me it was too flashy for me. He bought it for her. He took something I liked and gave it to another woman. That was the point where the sadness stopped. I didn't scream or anything. I just got cold. I started thinking about the house as an asset. The 4001k, the Seychelles. I thought about how he'd looked at me the night I found the box like I was some confused kid. I spent the afternoon making a list on a spreadsheet on my work laptop. I actually felt kind of peaceful. I had to get my ducks in a row first. Mark got home around 6:30. He looked exhausted. He dropped his keys in the ceramic bowl, the same bowl where I found the filing cabinet key. The AC in the office is acting up, he said. He didn't even look at me. I think the filter needs changing. Did you check it? I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw a crease in his shirt and the way he wouldn't meet my eyes. He felt like a total stranger. Yeah, I'll take care of it, I said. Thanks. He went to the kitchen and poured some water. By the way, I have to go to Scottsdale on Thursday. Client meeting ill, probably be late. I actually felt this little flicker of amusement Thursday. He was probably going to the condo. That's fine, I said. Do you want me to pack you a lunch, or are you eating with the client? He stopped with the glass halfway to his mouth. He looked at me, and for a second I think he saw it. I think he realized I wasn't just the stable wife he could ignore, but then he just shrugged and gave me that condescending little smile. I'll just grab something there. Don't worry about it, Scarlett. Whatever, Mark. I'm not worried about a thing. He went into the living room to watch the news. I stayed in the kitchen under the dim LEDs. I wondered if Lily knew about me. If he told her I was just some roommate he was trapped with, or if he made me the villain so he could feel like a hero for rescuing her. It didn't really matter. Whatever version of me he had in his head wasn't my problem anymore. Then I thought about the money he'd taken from Maya's college fund. That was the part that really did it. He could cheat, he could lie, he could buy bracelets for 26-year-olds, but he didn't get to steal from our daughter. I went to the pantry to put away some groceries and noticed a bag of flour had ripped. There was white powder all over the shelf. I spent a few minutes wiping it up with a damp cloth, making sure it was all gone. I don't know why I was being so thorough. I guess it's just a habit. I went back to the laptop and added a new column to the spreadsheet. I didn't have a lawyer yet, but I knew who to call. My cousin Sarah is a shark in family law. She'd been telling me for years that Mark seemed too polished to trust. It always defended him. I told her she was being cynical. I felt sick thinking about how much time I'd wasted protecting him. That night we were in bed and the AC was humming. Mark reached over and patted my hand. It was just a mindless gesture. The kind of thing you do when you aren't actually thinking about the person. "We should probably plan something for the summer," he murmured. He sounded sleepy. "Maybe a trip to the coast? Just the two of us." I lay there staring at the ceiling. I could already see at the hotels the fake smiles for the photos, pretending to be the couple everyone expected. "That sounds lovely, Mark," I said. I didn't move my hand. I lay there, feeling the cold air from the vent, waiting for him to fall asleep so I could get up and make the calls. I wasn't sad, I wasn't even angry. I just felt clear. I thought about the Scottsdale condo. I wondered if the walls were greige, or if Lily liked something different. I hoped the colors were ugly. I hoped the whole place was a disaster. He started snoring, so I slowly pulled my hand away. I got out of bed and walked to the window. The Phoenix night was still hot, and I could see the city lights flickering in the distance. I stood there for a while, listening to the silence of the house. I went back to the kitchen and looked at the empty socket where the light bulb had been. I decided I wouldn't replace it. The morning after I called Sarah, the house felt weird. Nothing huge, but I started noticing everything that was broken, like the dust on the counters and the dishwasher making that clicking sound again. I'm pretty sure a piece of plastic got stuck in the rinse arm. I stood there for a while, watching the coffee brew, thinking about everything. Mark came into the kitchen in his gym clothes. He's always way too high energy in the morning, which honestly pisses me off. He takes up the whole room. He grabbed his mug and kissed my forehead. "Gym before the office," he said. "Need anything from Target on my way back?" "We're good," I told him. I kept my voice flat. I wasn't trying to be mean. I couldn't bring myself to smile. I handed him his vitamins. He stopped at the door and looked at me. "You're quiet, still thinking about the other night." "I'm fine, Mark. Just tired." He nodded. He loves it when fine-finned, because then he doesn't have to deal with anything. He left the garage door shut, and I felt like I could actually breathe. I spent the next hour staring at my phone. Sarah had texted me her office address, a small place near Biltmore. Sarah's my cousin on my mom's side, and she's a lawyer. She's pretty scary, honestly. Even as kids, she'd win every argument with our aunts by quoting the rules. She hasn't changed. I think it was a Tuesday, or maybe Wednesday. I remember getting an email from the HOA about drought restrictions, and when we could water the lawn, which was just another annoying thing. Anyway, I drove to her office around 11. I took the long way to make sure I wasn't being followed. Sounds paranoid, but when you find out your husband has a second life, you start wondering about everything. Sarah's office smelled like leather and old paper. She doesn't do small talk. She looked at the photos it uploaded and sighed. "He's an idiot," she said, leaning back. "Not even a smart idiot, just lazy. He figured you wouldn't notice, so he stopped trying to hide it." "What does that mean for me?" I asked. She told me that since we're in Arizona, everything is community property, so it's a 50-50 split. The house, the 401k, and that secret account in Scottsdale. She said using marital money for a condo and jewelry for another woman is called marital waste, and she could argue I should get a bigger share to make up for what he spent. I sat there. It felt like we were talking about a business deal. I didn't even feel like a betrayed wife. Then I felt like a client with evidence. "I don't want to just split things," I told her. "I want him to feel this." Sarah gave me a professional smile. "That's why you called me. Now, here's the plan. We don't tell him. You keep being the stable wife. Make the lunches, handle the kids, stay in the background. Meanwhile, I'm going to trace every cent. Forensic accounting on the business and the secret account. We find out exactly what he took, and we make it so he can't negotiate. I left feeling clear. The drive home was a disaster, though. Traffic was terrible, and some guy in a lifted truck almost took out my mirror because he didn't signal. I spent 5 minutes gripping the wheel and staring at his bumper, hating how people drive in this city. It was a petty thing to focus on, but it helped. When I got home, the vacuum was in the hallway. ID tried to use it a few days ago, but it wasn't picking anything up. I spent 20 minutes on my hands and knees digging through the brush roll, pulling out clumps of Maya's hair and a plastic toy. It was stupid, but I kept pulling the hair out until it worked again. Then I put it away and went to the kitchen. For the next 2 weeks, I played the part. It was exhausting. I had to look at Mark and not see the liar, but the guy I'd spent 10 years with. I had to listen to him complain about stressful clients and his commute without laughing in his face. He actually seemed to like this version of me. Since I wasn't asking questions, he got more relaxed. He even brought me lilies from the grocery store one night. Thought we needed a bit more romance, he said, putting them on the table. I looked at them and wondered if the other woman liked lilies. If he bought her the same ones. Thank you, Mark. That was thoughtful, I said. I didn't feel anything. I was watching him try to keep things normal. I spent my nights in the craft room with my laptop and printed statements. I mapped out his late nights, every second Thursday of the month. He had a regional strategy session with an overnight stay. I checked the Scottsdale account, and every single time there was a charge for a steakhouse and champagne. Having the numbers made me feel better. The more I knew, the less he could get to me. He thought he had the power because he had the secrets, but the secrets were how I was going to trap him. One afternoon, Maya came home complaining about her math teacher. She was eating grapes at the kitchen island, and she looked so much like Mark, it almost made me sick. Same jaw, same way of squinting when she's annoyed. He doesn't explain it right, Mom, she said. He just says the answer is obvious and moves on. It's so annoying. Maybe you should get a tutor, I said. Dad says I need to focus more, she sighed. I looked at her and felt a bit guilty. She's 15, she doesn't need to know. Her dad is a fraud. But I hated that she was picking up his arrogance, that idea, that has the only one in the room. Who matters? It was a Friday when Mark told me about his next Scottsdale trip. Thursday again, he said, looking at his tablet. The Clark project is at a critical phase. It'll be gone until Friday evening. Need me to pack anything? I asked. I was stirring pasta and the steam was fogging up my glasses. No, I'm good. Just make sure the kids are handled. I don't want calls about missed practices while I'm in a meeting. I've got it, I said. I was looking forward to it. Sarah told me that once the forensic report was done, we should file the papers when he was distracted. The following Monday, I met Sarah again. She looked tired, but she had a folder full of documents. He's worse than we thought, she said, sliding a paper over. He didn't just take from the college fund. He took out a home equity line of credit on your house to fix up the condo. He put almost $80,000 into that place. New floors, lighting, a designer kitchen. I stared at the number 80,000. I thought about all the times he told me we couldn't afford to fix our guest bathroom, or how he complained about the cost of the kids' activities. He used our home to pay for a 26-year-old. Can we get the condo? I asked. Sarah said since it was bought with community funds, it's a community asset. We could force a sale and take half, or use it as leverage for the 401k and the house. I didn't even want the condo. I didn't want to spend a second in a place where he'd played house. I wanted the leverage. I wanted to see his face when he realized I'd taken everything. When I got home that day, I found a leak under the kitchen sink. Just a slow drip that had soaked into the cabinets. I spent an hour with a bucket and some towels, getting my hands cold and wet. I thought about how the house was just a bunch of things that broke: the AC, the dishwasher, the sink, everything. Eventually, I stopped trying to fix it. I left the bucket there. I didn't care if the cabinets warped. I wasn't going to be living there much longer. The rest of the week was more pretending. I made his favorite meals. I listened to him complain about his boss. I even went to some boring corporate dinner on Tuesday, smiling at people and pretending to care about their jobs. This guy named Greg, One of Mark's colleagues leaned in and told me, "You're lucky, Scarlett. Mark's a rock. Most guys can't handle that pressure, but he stays so steady." I looked at Mark, who was nodding and smiling, and I almost laughed. "Yes," I said. "He's very steady." By Thursday morning, I felt this hard knot in my chest. Mark left for Scottsdale at 8:00. He gave me a quick kiss and said he'd call from the hotel. As soon as the garage door closed, I called Sarah. "Now?" she asked. Now it happened fast. Sarah filed the petition and the emergency motion to freeze the joint accounts. Because of the evidence of the college fund and the waste, the court granted it almost immediately. I spent the afternoon in my garden pulling weeds. It was 95 degrees and the sun was brutal, but I didn't mind. Around 4 my phone started blowing up. First, a text from Mark. "What the hell is this?" My card was declined at the hotel, then a bunch of calls. I didn't answer. I sat on the patio, watching a hummingbird at the feeder, and waited. I waited until 7 he'd left about 15 voicemails. He went from confused to angry, then to panic, and finally to this desperate tone. He'd probably realized he was stranded in a hotel with no way to pay. I finally picked up. "Hello, Mark," I said. I felt actually calm. "What did you do?" he screamed. I could hear the wind. He was probably on the balcony of the condo. "What the hell did you do, Scarlett? My cards are blocked. I can't even get a drink at the bar. Why is a lawyer calling my office?" "Yeah, I saw the Scottsdale charges." "Mark, have fun figuring out how to pay for your room, because your cards are dead." There was a long silence. I could hear him breathing heavy and ragged. He sounded different. The steady guy was gone. He sounded small. "You can't do this," he whispered. "We have a family, we have kids, we had a family," I told him. "Now we have a legal dispute over assets. Sarah will call you about the condo. I suggest you find a way to pay for your room, because the joint account is closed. Scarlett, please let's just talk." I can explain. I was confused, I was stressed. I don't care about the explanations. "Mark, I care about the 401k and the college fund. I'll see you when the lawyers tell me to." I hung up. I went back into the kitchen and looked at the bucket under the sink. It was half full of murky water. I reached over and pulled the plug on the sink, letting a bit more water flow into the bucket. I didn't feel a huge rush of victory, I just felt done. I found some crackers in the pantry and sat at the table, eating them slowly. I listened to the AC and a neighbor's lawnmower. For the first time in a decade, I didn't care if the house was perfect or if the laundry was folded. I looked at an empty light bulb socket in the room. I still hadn't replaced it. I liked the dark spot. I spent the rest of the night organizing my things. I didn't pack. He wasn't leaving yet, but I made a list of what I actually wanted to keep. The beige linens, trash. The curtains, trash. The expensive furniture Mark picked out to make the place look like a showroom. I wondered if I could sell it all on Facebook Marketplace. I thought about Lily. I wondered if she was in that condo right now, wondering why the guy who promised her a new life suddenly couldn't pay for a drink at a hotel bar. I hoped she was looking at that designer kitchen and realizing it was all bought with stolen money. I sat on the sofa and stared at the wall for a long time. I wasn't really thinking about anything. I liked that I didn't have to pretend to be anyone else. Eventually, I went to the bedroom and climbed into bed. The room was cool, but I could still smell his sandalwood cologne on the pillows. I pulled the pillowcase off and threw it in the hamper. I lay there, in the dark, listening to the neighborhood. I knew the next few months would be a war, depositions, fighting over the house, telling Maya and her brother the truth. But as I closed my eyes, it felt like the hard part was over. I fell asleep pretty quickly, with the sound of that dripping sink in the other room.